On the news, federal government proposes 26.01 trillion naira 2024 budget, mulls passage and signing before end of 2023. Tinubu launches conditional cash transfer for 15 million households. And South Africa to surpass Nigeria as Africa's biggest economy. Hello and welcome to the news on TV 360 Nigeria. I am Simisola Adigun. The federal government has proposed the sum of 26.01 trillion naira for the 2024 appropriation bill based on the oil price benchmark of $73.96 and 21% interest rate. Minister of Budget and Economic Planning Atiku Bagudu disclosed this to State House correspondents at the end of the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting on Monday in Abuja. He added that the government was working towards ensuring the 2024 budget was passed and signed before December 31st, 2023, and that the January to December budget cycle was maintained. This report has details. This is the second Federal Executive Council FEC meeting of the new administration, which comes 6 weeks after the inauguration of the council on August 28, 2023. The meeting, presided over by President Bola Tinubu, commenced with the swearing-in of 3 additional ministers into his 48-member cabinet. Issues raised at the meeting covered the economy, road infrastructure around the country, the memo about the agreement reached between the government and the labor unions, as well as the export processing zone revitalization. While briefing State House correspondents, Minister of Budget and National Planning Atiku Bagudu announced the proposal of 26.01 trillion naira for the 2024 fiscal year, based on the oil price benchmark of $73.96 and 21% interest rate. He said the budget will be presented to the National Assembly before the end of 2023.
It was presented on the background of the commendable measures that have been taken since June in order to restore macroeconomic stability, particularly the deregulation of petroleum prices, which we will maintain. Fuel subsidies are gone, and indeed the regulation of the foreign exchange market.
Minister of Labour and Employment Simon Lalong revealed that FEC had given approval for the agreement between Labour and the government during the meeting held on October the 2nd. According to the MOU, the unions will now suspend their strike by 30 days.
Part of the agreement was to file it in a court of law, which we have set the process already, and the other one was the presidential approval. There cannot be any presidential approval more than the Federal Executive Council. So we presented them to the Federal Executive Council. We analyzed on each and every aspect of the agreement, and to show the genuineness and also the provide for harmonious and a good industrial relationship. And that was why it was presented and it was approved for implementation.
Approvals for the continuation of the 18,897 kilometers of inherited roads and bridges across the country were also announced by the Minister of Works, David Umahi.
A number of projects were awarded, some lasting up to 20 years back, abandoned, ongoing with no proper funding, and so on and so forth. And there's some new critical routes, totaling a total of 12,000 kilometers and 24 bridges. And, FEC approved the continuation of these heritage projects under the new proposal.
Umahi also revealed that FEC had granted permission for the prioritization of concrete pavement for ongoing road projects based on their progress status. On his part, Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris disclosed that the council had approved Mondays for the holding of the weekly FEC meetings instead of Wednesdays adopted by the previous administrations. Simisola Adigun, TV 360 News. President Bola Tinubu has flagged off the conditional cash transfer targeted at 15 million households as part of the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty in a bid to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. At the launch of the cash transfer scheme on Tuesday, which coincided with the World Poverty Eradication Day, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, says it was in fulfillment of the President's Independence Day broadcast to Nigerians on October 1, where he announced the cash transfer program which would target vulnerable citizens. Meanwhile, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Eradication, Betta Edu, says the 15 million households represent 62 million Nigerians. She added that the plan was to transfer the sum of 25,000 naira to the beneficiaries on a monthly basis for 3 months, amounting to 75,000 naira for each of the beneficiaries. Several reports by reputable organizations, both local and international, have indicated that Nigeria faces a serious challenge of poverty for millions of the country's citizens. Now, according to the World Poverty Clock 2023 data, there are 71 million extremely poor Nigerians, and the National Bureau of Statistics classifies 133 million people as multidimensionally poor in Nigeria. As the world commemorates the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, Nigerians have called on the federal government to establish and implement policies that will grow the economy and provide job opportunities for the youth.
I think it boils down to policies, right? And much more than making policies, having the will to see these policies through. Because at the end of the day, it boils down to the employment index in the country. The more manufacturing entities we have, the more jobs are created. The more jobs are created, the more people are engaged. The young people are engaged. Nigeria have more of young people than the elderly ones. If you look at the census figures, you see that you have a lot of people under 40, able-bodied men and women that are ready to work. But of course, where is the jobs? Where are the jobs? So if we have more manufacturing entities set up in the business, it's a ripple effect because people get employed. These people, they feed families, and you see that the chain begins to trickle down even to the generations unborn. So with that, everyone is gainfully empowered. Let me use that word. Everybody is empowered, and of course, it's a way of maybe not totally eradicating, because I don't think there's any country that has eradicated poverty 100%, but of course it drops significantly.
Debt itself is not a bad thing, depending on what it's used for. So for example, if you're taking loans and you're using these loans to get better infrastructure that would help manufacturing or help exporting goods and things like that, those are good things and ultimately things that will positively affect the economy. But if you're borrowing for consumption, then that's not a good thing. So I think for me as a Nigerian and in my own space, the most important thing is that to have the government make the right policy. So even if they are borrowing, it is being used for the right thing.
Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, says the federal government has secured a budget support loan worth $1.5 billion from the World Bank and another worth $80 million from the African Development Bank to finance various projects in critical sectors of the economy. Edun told State House correspondents on Monday that the government would receive the $1.5 billion as a whole before the end of the year, provided it fulfilled its end of the deal. He says Nigeria qualified for the relatively cheap loans given its macroeconomic moves in the past couple of months since President Bola Tinubu assumed office.
Application for financing from the World Bank, and in particular the International Development Association, which is really the virtually free or zero interest lending arm or financing arm of the World Bank. The total is $1.5 billion. And the background is, just as you heard from the Minister of Planning and Budget, the world today is one of high interest rates as the developed world looks to fight inflation. They're doing it by restricting money, keeping interest rates high so that they can get inflation down. What that means is that interest rates for everybody else become not just high, but very painful, if not unaffordable. Within that context, Nigeria has been able to make the kind of macroeconomic moves, has been able to take the tough decisions to restore balance in the economy, in the government's finances, that has warranted support, that has gendered and that has elicited even support from the multilateral development banks. And it's on the basis of that that the World Bank is willing to consider and to process on our behalf $1.5 billion of concessional financing, relatively cheap financing, and financing that will be disbursed relatively quickly. And that was what was presented to the Council, the Federal Executive Council, and the members approved that we go ahead with that financing, given that it is affordable.
The current rise of Nigeria's inflation figure in September has drawn reactions from various quarters. The nation's annual inflation rose in September for a ninth straight month to its highest level in about 2 decades to 26.72% from August's 25.8% amid a worsening cost of living crisis in Africa's largest economy. Food inflation, making up the bulk of Nigeria's inflation basket, also rose to 30.64% in September from 29.34% in August. Reacting to this, economic experts have said the persistent rise is risky to the country's fragile economy. Economic analyst Segun Sokunto joins me on the news to lend his thoughts on this situation. Thank you for your time, Mr. Sokunto. Now, President Tinubu has just flagged off the conditional cash transfer targeted at 15 million households as part of the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty amid a new increase in Nigeria's inflation rate. Now, how far do you think that this money will go in terms of meeting the needs of poor Nigerians?
Thanks for having me. Sadly, I do not see any significant impact, especially with regards to the areas that require urgent action. So you give conditional cash transfer, 15 million Nigerians. How much are you giving to them and how long are you giving to them for? Relative to the loss of disposable income, the impact on their disposable income that some of these policies have had. So there's a significant erosion of purchasing power on the part of these people that we're talking about because of the increase in fuel prices and because of the increase in the devaluation of our naira and the attendant inflationary tendency that has created. So conditional cash transfers are not going to solve the problem, I'm afraid. What will address this issue are very strong, very well, clearly articulated policies that will bring funding back to the pocket of Nigeria. Some of those decisions will not be popular with the multilateral agencies that this government seems to be determined to work with, World Bank, the IMF, the IFC, and the likes of them. Because these policies will have to have some sort of social leaning. Unbridled capitalism will not address our problems because of the sheer volume and depth of poverty that we have. You cannot have capitalism in a country as poor as we have. So it's supposed to be, a gradual process. And unfortunately, we seem to have beaten a bit more than we can chew, as we can see from all of our economic indicators at the moment. They're just not.
All right, Mr. Sokunto, many thanks for you speaking to us. Moving on, the new Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Postal Service, NIPOST, Tola Odeyemi, has promised that her tenure will lead NIPOST into a new era of innovation, modernization and transformation in line with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu. Odeyemi, who is the first woman to head the parastatal, is faced with the task of changing the narrative of an agency that has suffered neglect in the past. Our correspondent completes the story.
A few days ago, the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Ajuri Ngilali, had issued a statement on the change of guard in the parastatals under Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. Nigeria Postal Service was affected and what was thought will be a smooth transition at the NIPOST headquarters threw up an unexpected drama. Staff had gathered early on Monday with different placards protesting the appointment of a new chief executive as they vowed to reject it.
Today we are saying no to it. Today we are requesting that the Postmaster General, Sunday Adekoju, should be allowed to continue the good works he started. Yes. He should be allowed to continue the good works he started. Yes. We are not against Mr. President, we are not against Mr. Minister, but our desire is that the good works that he started must be taken to somewhere. Yes. Because removing him at this point will abort these processes, will terminate these processes, will take NIPOST back to square one, which we are against it.
While this was going on, the outgoing chief executive, Sunday Adekoju, defied the presidential announcement by resuming, as unconfirmed reports say, he had been reinstated. Eventually, reason prevailed as Mr. Adekoju left NIPOST premises amid cheers by the staff. A few minutes after the former chief executive left, the newly appointed chief executive Tola Oteyemi resumed, received by the management of NIPOST, not minding that they had earlier prevented her from gaining access to the building. After exchanging pleasantries with the senior management staff, she formally unveils her plan to lead NIPOST into a new era of innovation.
I aim to build on the commendable work of my predecessors. My aspiration not only to solidify NIPOST status as one of the leading postal operators in the world, but also to make it a critical conduit in bridging trade, economic and social gaps of our beloved country. To make NIPOST a dependable logistics provider that can connect Nigerians, irrespective of what they do, entrepreneurs to their customers, diaspora to their relatives back home, Nigeria to the global e-commerce market, and also Nigerians to their government, irrespective of where they live.
She also assures to leverage on technology.
Together, we will develop a 21st century NIPOST, an institution that stands tall in its commitment to efficiency, trust, and impeccable service delivery. I understand the need for modern solutions that cater to current demands, but without losing sight of core values.
It is hoped that the management and staff of NIPOST, which is critical to Nigeria's economic development, will leave the drama that followed the leadership change behind and focus on the greater good.
We'll post the news shortly here, but coming up, Liberia heads for presidential runoff as where Borkai go neck and neck. Stay with us for details. Welcome back. Let's take you through our top stories. The federal government has proposed the sum of 26.01 trillion naira for the 2024 appropriation based on the oil price benchmark of $73.96 and 21% interest rate. Minister of Budget and Economic Planning Atiku Bagudu, who disclosed this to State House correspondents at the end of the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting on Monday in Abuja, added that the government was working towards ensuring the 2024 budget was passed and signed before December 31, 2023, and that the January to December budget circle was maintained. We also told you that President Bola Tinubu has flagged off the conditional cash transfer targeted at 15 million households as part of the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty in a bid to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. At the launch of the cash transfer scheme on Tuesday, which coincided with the World Poverty Eradication Day, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, said it was in fulfillment of the President's Independence Day broadcast to Nigerians on October 1, where he announced the cash transfer program, which would target vulnerable citizens. And in case you missed any of our news bulletins and for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, or download our mobile app on Google Play Store and Huawei App Gallery. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. Welcome back. Tamilore Akinkwole is on standby with business news. Over to you, Tamilore.
Thank you, Somisola. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Federal Executive Council has approved the establishment of the Presidential Council on Industrial Revitalization Roadmap. Addressing State House correspondent on the new council and its duties, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Uzuka-Anite, said the committee will be chaired by President Tinubu with 10 subcommittees. The subcommittees will evaluate the policies within different ministries, including the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment.
We have a lot of policies, frameworks, and guidelines that should help to revitalize the industries within these different ministries and agencies. And we are supposed to collaborate and come up with single roadmap for each of these subcommittees or each of these roadmaps. And that is actually geared towards developing the full industrial revival of the economy, in line with the 8-point agenda of Mr. President. At the end of this, we expect to see a boost in investment coming into the different industrial sectors. We see a boost in job creation and employment, and a general increase in our indices, especially our GDP growth rate, which we expect to be growing from 3.5, hopefully to 7%, and a GDP base of about 1 trillion, which is in line with Mr. President's vision. It's actually because of how to actualize this that we came up with the roadmap to stimulate industrial growth, especially catalyzing the SME growth and the whole industrial sectors.
And South Africa may topple Nigeria as Africa's biggest economy. This is according to the International Monetary Fund, IMF. According to IMF, World Economic Outlook, South Africa, the most industrialized country in the African continent, is reaching towards achieving 401 gross domestic product in 2024. The IMF anticipates that South Africa will briefly surpass Nigeria, the most populous African nation, for a year before falling behind once again. We'll take a break and be back with stock market reports. Please stay with us. Bullish sentiment on the Nigerian exchange group drove the market higher on Tuesday, as trading ended at 0.43%. It's a win-win at market breadth also ended with 27 gainers against 22 losers. Julius Berger Nigeria tops the gainers counter with 10% share appreciation, followed by Computer Warehouse Group ending with an appreciation of 9.83%. In aggregate, 118 investors traded 377 million volume of shares, valued at 5.1 billion naira in 6,729 deals. It's a similar story for select global stocks, as the US FTSE, UK FTSE, US Dow Jones, and Japan Nikkei all ended in bullish territory at 0.58%, 0.33%, and 1.20% respectively. And that's all on the market review. Simisola, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tamilore. On the global scene, Liberia is heading for a second round of voting in a presidential election between outgoing incumbent George Weah and opponent Joseph Boakai, as official provisional results place them neck and neck. according to results by the National Electoral Commission in the country. With more than 94% of ballots counted, Wakai garnered 43.7%, while Weah gained 43.65%. The two men were well ahead of the 18 other presidential candidates in the first round of voting in the West African nation on October the 10th. Well, up next is Entertainment Report on News Now.
Nigerian international sensation Tiwa Savage has revealed she's been battling a vocal infection, putting a hold on her London concert. In a post on her Instagram account on October 17, 2023, Tiwa Savage disclosed she's been battling with a vocal virus and her doctors have advised she takes a break from singing. Tiwa Savage was scheduled to make history as the first Afrobeat female artist to headline the Wembley Arena with her show scheduled for November 2023. She has now postponed the show along with the rest of her shows, which would all be rescheduled for a later date. American megastar Taylor Swift has set a new streaming record on Spotify. Over the last decade, Taylor Swift has been one of the biggest artists in the world, with her music winning multiple Grammy Awards and also hitting unprecedented commercial heights. In another giant stride, Taylor Swift has broken the all-time biggest streaming year on Spotify after her music surpassed 21 billion streams, surpassing the previous record held by Bad Bunny. Taylor Swift's Spotify streaming record reinforces her status as one of the most commercial artists on the global streaming platform, as evidenced in her over 100 million monthly listeners. And that's all on the entertainment segment of News Now. Okpeyemi Owosheni, TV360 News.
And on sports, FIFA President Gianni Infantino says he is shocked and saddened by the shooting dead of two Swedish nationals before the Euro qualifying match between Belgium and Sweden. Both Swedish fans were shot dead on Monday near Brussels city centre shortly before the Euro 2024 qualifier at the King Bodin Stadium. The match went ahead as scheduled but was halted at halftime with a score at 1-1. In a statement on his Instagram account, the president extended his deepest condolences to the family and friends of the victims on behalf of FIFA and the global football family. Well, that's our bulletin on News Now. Many thanks for staying with us. Bye for now.